Previous Jagan Reddy-led YSRCP government used animal fat for making the laddus at the Tirupati Temple. The controversy is now really blowing up, and how? The BJP, the TDP, the Janasena, all of them have lashed out at the YSR party for playing with the faith of millions of devotees, not just in Andhra Pradesh, but right around the world. They are saying, how dare anyone, any government, think of adulterating what is the prasadam of the Lord. Not only has Jagan Reddy's party rejected these charges, they've also moved the Andhra Pradesh High Court, saying that these are completely baseless, cooked-up charges. The Andhra Pradesh High Court will be hearing this case next week. The central government too has stepped in, with Union Health Minister JP Nadda seeking a full report on this issue. He's added that the government will further examine this matter and take suitable action. The temple board, the TTD, Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam, has backed the charges from the TDP government, saying that evidence suggests that animal fat was used to prepare the prasad, or prepare the ghee that went into making the prasad. The TTD board executive member has also added that the vendors, one of them has been blacklisted, and punitive action will be taken against this said company. Meanwhile, Jagan Reddy has rejected these allegations leveled against his government. He's called them a diversionary tactic, saying that the procurement of ghee goes through multiple checks and balances, even saying that the report cited by the TDP government could be a false positive. But given the status of the Tirupati temple, the exalted nature of the devotion that people have for Lord Venkateswara as one of the most holy sites in the Hindu religion in the world, this controversy has led to demands for not just a swift investigation, which should get to the bottom of what exactly happened, but if it did indeed happen, that animal fat was used in the preparation of the prasadam, then accountability needs to be fixed. Heads need to roll for the same. So as the case is all set to take a legal turn, the question remains, was this a case of corruption to try and cut corners? And in the process, the Hindu faith was disregarded, and the faith of tens of millions of Hindus was disregarded. But first, the story of what has been a dramatic charge by the TDP government and a counter now by Jagan Reddy and his party.
उस जो रिपोर्ट है जिस सोर्स से आई है, उस रिपोर्ट को पूरी तहकीकात करके उसके सारे पहलुओं को ध्यान में रख करके सूटेबल एक्शन विल बी टेकन.
We are demanding a CBI inquiry into this issue because it is not a small issue. It does not pertain to a small group of people, but to crores of people.
The report says two things. One is that it is adulterated with vegetable fats, and another is it is adulterated with animal fats.
I brought it to the attention of the previous executive officer and previous chairman of the trust board. There were two chairmen, there were two executive officers, about the fall in the quality of laddus, the taste and sanctity of the laddus.
3 రిపోర్ట్స్ మళ్ళీ పాస్ అయితేనే ఇవి వాడకంలోకి తీసుకొని వస్తారు.
ఒకప్పుడు వైఎస్ఆర్ కాంగ్రెస్ పార్టీలో ప్రసాదం బాగుందా అని అడుగుతున్నా మిమ్మల్ని. బాగా లేదని వాళ్ళు జైలుపైకి ఎత్తండి.
Before we get to our debate tonight, I want to lay out there for our viewers, for better understanding, the storm of charges, the sea of charges from both sides, from the TDP and of course the counter from Jagan's party. The TDP's charge is that the YSR party, when it was in power for the last 5 years, it tarnished the sanctity of the Tirumala temple, the Tirupati temple. The YSRCP's counter is that Chandrababu Naidu is lying, and that too in the name of Lord Venkateswara. The TDP's charge is that animal fats, whether it was beef tallow, pork lard, or even fish oil, was used in the preparation of the prasad during Jagan Reddy's tenure. The YSRCP has countered that by saying only NABL certified firms were allowed to supply ghee for the making of the prasadam. The TDP is also charged that a lab report has shown that beef fat, fish oil, and pork lard was used in the preparation of the prasadam. YSRCP's counter is that that same report says a false positive result can also be obtained. TDP's charge is that Jagan Reddy's government colluded with vendors to try and cut corners. They've made this not just an attack on Hindu Aashta and Hindu faith, they've also made this into a corruption issue. That the reason why they were relying on this firm which supplied allegedly animal fat used in the ghee was because it was cheaper, and otherwise to procure pure ghee would have been far more expensive. So the TDP is also making this out to be a case of corruption and cutting corners. The YSRCP's counter is that they have moved the Andhra Pradesh High Court and that they are open to any investigation, whether it is by the state government's agencies or by the CBI. The TDP's charge is that Jagan Reddy looted funds by appointing his own blood relatives as members of the TTD board. YSRCP's counter is that this is a diversionary tactic because of the misgovernance by the TDP already. Remember, TDP has just come to power. It's been barely a couple of months, but the YSRCP is saying that this is an attempt to try and cover up for the misgovernance already. Let's now open this up to our guest. Lanka Dinakar is spokesperson of the BJP. We're also joined by Mr. Konda Rajiv Gandhi, who is a YSRCP spokesperson. T. Krishna Prasad is Member of Parliament and leader of the TDP. Let me start with the YSRCP spokesperson, Mr. Konda Rajiv Gandhi. You know, this is the charge against your government and your leader. And this has come not just from the state government, but also Shyamala Rao, who is the TTD executive officer, the executive officer in charge of the Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam, that the prasadam was highly adulterated. The sample appeared to be ghee, but it was not. Suppliers cut corners, basically because ghee was very expensive. It's 1,000 rupees plus for a litre of ghee, but the suppliers cut corners and sold it at 350 rupees because there was a lack of testing. And one of the suppliers has been blacklisted for flouting the norms. How are you going to respond to this, Mr. Konda Rajiv Gandhi?
Well, there is a conspiracy around this matter. Before speaking as a representative or as a politician or a spokesman of the particular political party, as a Hindu and as a devotee of Tirumala Tirupati Sri Venkateswara Swami Varu, I have few questions and queries. Well, when did the test has taken place? Means, is it before June 4th or after June 4th? So probably when we see the reports, I think the tests were conducted in the month of July. And after a span of 1 or 2 weeks, the test results came in the month of the July only. But if such results were in the test report, and why did they had this much delay of time in exposing them to the media? Why the results came, when the results came in July, why did it took almost more than 2 months? This month we are in already September month, right? And the results came in 7th month according to the report. So what has happened in the middle gap? What conspiracy happened? Did they alter the reports, or is there any alterations in this thing? And I have a specific doubt that before going to sample itself, the products may be altered willfully just to put allegations on our party and to create Jagan Reddy sir as an anti-Hindu. This is all a part of diversion politics being played by
Mr. Konda Rajiv Gandhi, I'll give you the timeline, and this is what has this is the timeline of when the sample was collected, when the report came in, etc. July 17th, the sample was collected from the Tirupati Temple. Remember, no company had been blacklisted on July 17th. This was the same set of companies that were given the contract when your party was in power. 4 days later, on the 23rd of July, the first report, the initial report comes out. It indicates adulteration. Now, what form of adulteration? That preliminary report does not show. As a follow-up to that preliminary report, the TTD board sends a show cause notice to all the firms, the 5 firms that are supplying ghee, of which one of those companies, N-Nutrica, is found to be the company that had provided the adulterated ghee. That company is later blacklisted by the TTD board. On the 4th of September, the TTD board says that instead of N-Nutrica, only Nandini ghee will be used in the preparation of the prasadam at the Tirupati temple. A ghee committee is formed by the TTD board to set up the guidelines by which the ghee will be procured. And then this is conveyed to the state government in September. And finally, yesterday, the chief minister in a public rally, in a public address, says that animal fats were used in the preparation of the prasadam at the Tirupati temple. This is the sequence of events. Now, what are the doubts that you are raising in these sequence of events?
Yeah, yes. See, probably we had handed over the charge to the then government because of the new government. After June 4th, we are not into the power. Maybe the suppliers, suppliers is an open option for anyone. The NABL certified contractors can participate in the open auction and they can provide the ghee for Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam. As now the EO or this government saying that Nandini Dairy is very much better and only Nandini Dairy can supply. So if it in that case, what happened to the then government between the tenure of 14 to 19, which is led by Chandrababu, the Nandini ghee, they did not allow the same Nandini ghee to be supplied in Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam from the tenure of 2015 to 2018 October.
No, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, the issue is not whether Nandini was supplying or somebody else was supplying.
Yes,
the issue was
that's true,
one
that's
of the
true.
one of the
You
5
gave my
companies that was supplying, Nutrica, was supplying animal fat laden ghee. Let me ask Mr. Krishna Prasad, who is a member of parliament and the leader of the TDP. Mr. Jagan Reddy had a press conference. You heard what the YSRCP spokesperson is saying. They are outright rejecting this, saying that no such thing has happened, that this is completely concocted by the TDP government and you are doing this to hide your own failures. How are you responding to that?
This is absolute rubbish. They're trying to divert the entire subject. What they have to really stand by is if there is any forensic report and that forensic report is saying something, let them accept that. Now, it is not the question of only corruption. Corruption is only a small part of it. My main contention is that you have scant respect for any faith. Now, this is not the first time. Please see what has happened between 2004 and 2008. There were complaints that on the hills of Tirumala, there were attempts to spread other religions. There were serious complaints against non-Telugu parties who were in the governance at that time. Now what is happening? Now, see, as a devout Hindu or any Hindu for that matter in the Telugu land or Tamil Nadu, they all come to Tirupati, have the crave for the darshan for Lord Venkateswara, wait for days together to have darshan of Lord Venkateswara, and then have the prasadam, what we call here as Tirupati Laddu. Now, Tirupati Laddu is very, very precious to all of us. And when we take the Tirupati Laddu back home, there are a lot of relatives and friends waiting to have a small bit of Tirupati Laddu. It is so precious and holy. Now, if that Tirupati Laddu is adulterated with an animal fat or extract of animal fat, the entire faith has been betrayed and shattered. The faith in the faith is now shattered and played around.
No, but Mr. Prasad, the question that the YSR Congress folks are asking is that if this happened on July 17th and July 23rd, the preliminary report came indicating adulteration, why did your government wait for 2 months? Why did the Chief Minister wait for 2 months before he made this announcement yesterday?
Right. So, very good question. I like this question. So, the first report, the prima facie report says adulteration, adulterated with what is not known at that stage. And what has come out now is very, very serious. And that is the reason that to protect the faith of the people, to protect the interests of the people, Honorable Chief Minister Sri Nara Chandrababu has decided to bring it out. So, mere adulteration that was brought out in July is mere adulteration pointing towards corruption.
Okay.
Now, this is much more than corruption. This is playing with the faith of the people.
Okay. Let me ask Mr. Lanka Dinakar. So, here are the 4 or 5 reasons why this story has blown up in the way in which it has. There is a lab test that has come out. You can see screenshots of that lab test, which is confirming the use of beef tallow, fish oil, and pork lard in the preparation of the ghee for the Tirupati temple. Now, there are 5 companies that supply ghee to the Tirupati temple. One of them, one company, a company named N-Nutrica, which is based in Tamil Nadu, is allegedly the one that is supplying this ghee that is laced with animal fat. Now, there was earlier also a controversy when Jagan Reddy was Chief Minister about reducing the size of the Tirupati Laddu. Jagan Reddy's uncle, who was a member of the TTD board, is facing an inquiry, or was facing an inquiry about the alleged misuse of funds at that time. He was appointed as the head of the TTD board in 2019. There was also, I am given to understand, that very briefly in 2019, a Christian prayer was briefly displayed on the Tirumala website. Now, my point is, again, what the YSRCP and the skeptics of your alliance partnership are asking is, if 5 companies were providing and one company was providing adulterated ghee, how did you manage to separate that? Because ultimately the laddu is all prepared together. How do you know which company's ghee was used to prepare which laddu?
It is very, very clear that Jagan Reddy-led YSRCP government, for last 5 years, they used to watch Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam as a revenue generating source to them. They never ever considered Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam as a spiritual Hindu devotees, whoever they are, watch it as a holy place for their pujas, whatever they want to perform in front of Lord Venkateswara. My straight point is, irrespective of lab tests, my straight point is, let you see that what was the actual price of Desi cow ghee per kg. It ranges between 3,000 rupees to 5,000 rupees. When it is the Jersey cow ghee, it comes the range between 1,000 rupees to 1,200 rupees. In these circumstances, how can per kg ghee they are getting in between 320 rupees to 400 rupees? There itself is the answer is there. Adulterated ghee they used because of this substandard ghee they procured at a lower price. Any kind of normal sense, if they apply, definitely they catch that they are using the substandard ghee.
No, but Mr. Dinakar, once again, there are 5 companies that are supplying the ghee. All 5 were supplying around the same price. How are you singling out one company and saying that this one company was the one that was providing the animal fat laden ghee?
No. Let facts will come one by one. Everything will come out, because the pricing, if you observe that, definitely at that price, ghee per kg, whatever I mentioned, it is not possible to provide any kind of supply. Apart from that, whatever the ingredients which used for the preparation of laddu and Annadhanam Prasadam, let you observe that the quality was substandardly adversely impacted for last 5 years. The size of laddu reduced. So many times we conducted press meets. We expressed our displeasure about the state government under the leadership of YS Jagan Reddy and their uncles as the board chairmen. Two relatives have been consecutively appointed as their board chairmen.
Okay.
On 27th November 2023, I myself, along with my BJP party leaders, we conducted a press meet in Tirumala pertaining to the corruption charges and funds diversion of board members' decision. We had very clearly raised our voice.
Okay.
Regarding to Tirupati Laddu Prasadam also, the substandard quality we questioned very, very well advanced. 1 year, 2 years before itself we questioned. Even if you observe that during the election campaign also, we asked the people in Tirupati, we asked various other places in the state about the quality of Tirupati Laddu. Chandrababu Naidu garu asked about the quality of the Laddu directly to the public. You have played the video. Pawan Kalyan ji asked, Purandeswari ji asked. People gave very clear reply. It is very clear. Those who play games with Lord Venkateswara, history already very clearly shown its impact.
So let me ask Sumant Raman. Sumant Raman, again, it comes down to whether the Jagan Reddy government, the previous government in Andhra Pradesh, was playing around with the sentiments of the majority community, the Hindu community there, because they didn't think it would blow up in the way that it did, and two, that there is no political cost to pay. I mean, if indeed this is true, what the YSRCP folks are saying is, please send it to a central forensic laboratory. Please give this. I spoke to YS Sharmila some time back, and she said there should be an impartial CBI inquiry to find out which of these companies was responsible and whether that animal fat was used by one company or used by multiple companies. After all, there were multiple companies that were supplying the ghee. Only one company was found to have used, at least the report states that one company was allegedly using animal fat laden ghee.
Yeah, Zaka, first of all, we have to understand that very sadly, the TTD is an awfully corrupt organization. That is an open. Everybody knows that the TTD is a terribly corrupt body, irrespective of whether it is the YSRCP government or whether it is the TDP government. That has been the case. All you need to do is to look at the list of board members in the TTD, irrespective of who is there, and it reads, as I put it out on Twitter yesterday, it reads like a rogues gallery. Many of them have serious criminal charges against them. Most recently in the board, you have two of them who are accused in the Delhi liquor policy case. One of them, Dr. Ketan Desai, who was the board member, was pulled up for corruption by the Delhi High Court, removed from the MCI. So I mean, it's not. I don't see this as a huge surprise. So there is a lot of corruption. Now forget whether it is YSRCP or TDP. Come to this particular matter. Now, two or three things simply. When I first heard the news as an ardent devotee, for me, it made me extremely angry. The point really is, on deeper reflection, I think we need to know more information. And that is why I think an impartial inquiry is absolutely critical. First, how often have samples been tested for the quality of ghee? What have been the results in the past in terms of the samples tested? Right now, we have this one report which has gone to the NDDB in Gujarat, and it has come back with some contaminants and animal fat and so on. Now, is it a policy? Because today the executive officer says we don't have facilities. Now NDDB says they will donate 35 crore of equipment or 35 lakh of equipment to us so that we can start doing our own testing. So how often has the TTD been testing these samples for the purity? What have been the results earlier? How many companies has action been taken earlier? Have there been similar instances in the past, or is this the first time ever that something like this is happening? If this is the first sample, clearly the ghee could not have been supplied when YSR Congress was in power. It may have, if the sample has been sent in July, then clearly the ghee may have been supplied in June or thereabouts. So
no, but before that, Dr. Raman, I mean, isn't there a basic contention? What Mr. Lanka Dinakar was also saying, if to procure ghee, the cheapest you can procure even in a wholesale market is 1,000 rupees a litre or thereabouts. And if this company was giving it to you at 350 rupees a litre, surely that itself would have set the alarm bells ringing.
Not really, Zaka. I'll tell you how these things work. Many of the large companies often take up contracts which involve Tirumala or food places, usually cost. Sometimes they don't even look at a profit margin on it. They do it mostly because the owners are devotees of the temple, or the branding and the prestige which comes with supplying to the holiest of holy shrines. All these are factors. Prima facie, just because they supplied it at a low cost means it is adulterated, is something we will not accept.
Okay, Lanka Dinakar wants to respond to that. He wants to respond to that point that you made. Yeah.
Last point.
Last point, and then Lanka Dinakar will come to that.
My submission.
No, let him finish. 30 seconds.
Let me finish. 1 minute. So
30 seconds, Lanka Dinakar. Let him finish. I'll come back to you. 30 seconds. Yeah.
Even assuming that there has been a lapse on the part of the TTD, it could not have happened with just nobody knowing about it, or some only people at the YSRCP level knowing about it. It must have been down the chain. There are government officials there. It's not that Jagan Reddy goes and gets the ghee.
Okay, let Mr. Dinakar respond. Okay.
as far as the pricing is concerned, as a chartered accountant, anybody can provide at a lower cost as a donation, considered donation for the spiritual institutions. Nobody can deny, but the full price will be addressed, out of which if there is any donation they want to intend, they can declare. This is not the way in which it happened. It is very clear that the quality of the laddu, we conducted various press meets for last 5 years. The quality of laddu and the material utilizing for the laddu and Annadana Prasadam deteriorated. The substandard material was used. That's why taste of the laddu and the size of the laddu significantly reduced.
Okay.
It is everybody noticed that problem. Now,
So-
after testing from the lab,
So can
the
I
truth has come out.
have Konda Rajiv Gandhi on the screen? So you are saying that you don't trust this report, you want a central inquiry, but the National Dairy Development Board, based in Anand in Gujarat, is one of the most reputed laboratories in the country. If they are saying that one of the companies was supplying animal fat laden ghee, then on what basis are you questioning the credibility of this lab? This is one of the most credible, seriously taken labs in this country, the National Dairy Development Board.
Maybe you're right that it has a good credibility, the institution, what you mentioned. But what is my point is, these people willfully altered or adulterated the sample and have sent to the lab and brought a report in such a manner. We have many doubts, so that if we are the culprits, we don't have a guts to demand an inquiry, right? So before demanding an inquiry, either CBI or a sitting judge inquiry, as a faithful Hindu people, the previous chairman, Subba Reddy, openly challenged that he, along with his family, will come to Tirumala in front of God. He will take a oath on the he will do promise on God itself along with his family, stating that no kind of adulteration done in his tenure. Thus, Chandrababu is ready to do that. That is an open challenge. See, two is technically and one is emotionally and faithfully. The other thing I want to tell is this Chandrababu Naidu always try to utilize his TTD for his own political activities, just like converted and diverted the money of Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam for Dharma Porada Dekshalu between the tenure of 14 to 19. And even he utilized Tirumala for the Alipuri incident before 2003, before facing general elections. And Dinakar said one good point. Definitely Lord Sri Venkateswara will not leave anyone. In the same way, Lord Sri Venkateswara slapped Chandrababu Naidu politically in 2004 elections. And moreover, Chandrababu is definitely an anti-Hindu. He is the man who goes and do the puja with chapel. He is the man who killed 30 people in Pushkaras. He is the man who demolished more than 40 plus temples in Andhra Pradesh. This is his political.
The charge is also equally pressing against your party when you were in power about demolition of Hindu temples, about dilution of the board, the HRNC board, and so on. Let Mr. Prasad respond to it. Mr. Prasad, the point is that there has to be an above board, non-partisan lab that can test, and it does not end with just taking one sample in July 17th and saying, oh, this is adulterated. You have to go back to the 5-year period that the YSRCP was in power. How would you respond to the question, to the charge that he is making? What if you adulterated that one sample?
Right. Look at this same thing. Now he's trying to divert the total attention of all the people. Now, very, very simple fact is, in the last 5 years, how many complaints did TTD receive about the quality of laddu, and why did they ignore? There were lakhs of complaints. And finally, because there were lakhs of complaints on the size of the laddu, there were lakhs of complaints from the common people, the believers, the faith believers, on the quality of laddu. They were suspecting something on the quality of laddu and what the ingredients of the laddu. Finally, the matter was taken up by Mr. Pawan Kalyan, by Mr. Nara Chandrababu Naidu, and they raised so many questions during the YCP government. Even then, the YCP government or the TTD under YCP government never bothered to go for any forensic science test or any test for that matter. They simply made political statements and got away. Now, what is this all reduction of money? When you are saying the cost of the ghee is about 1,000 rupees and you can go up to 5,000 rupees, and why did they come down to 300 rupees? What for? Whose pockets are they satisfying?
No, that's what
Why are they-
Sumant Raman is saying, that maybe some companies who may be ardent devotees of Lord Venkateswara
Normally-
would have done this out of their own charity.
Normally, corruption.
Yeah, if they have given,
Yeah,
if they have given out of
let
charity,
him
fine.
respond. Let him respond. Yeah.
If they have given out of charity, that is fine. But the question here is, when there were thousands and lakhs of complaints, why did you not ever bother to conduct a test of the ingredients of the ghee? Or if you are not suspecting the ghee, at least the laddu, what has gone, what are the various things that
Okay.
have gone into laddu?
Sumant Raman, there were
Why were you
complaints
hiding
about
all this
reducing
fact?
the size of the
One
laddu. I
submission,
remember
if you
that.
permit
There were
me.
multiple reports that had
One
come.
submission, Sajji. One submission. What honorable parliamentarian saying that why it was not tested previously something. It is a fact, unfortunately, which is being hidden by TDP is, it's a fact that every container or any product, whichever it may enters into TTD for the sake of Annadanam or Nivedana or Laddu Prasadam, whatever it may be, it will be tested in the 3 phases. After qualifying in those 3 tests only, it will be allowed to TTD.
Okay.
Every tanker will be tested.
Okay,
This is quite unfortunate. Even a
no. Will
parliamentarian saying
you make public the report of the 5 years that you were there? Will you
So
make
now they
public
were in power, they can go,
the report of this testing, as you claim it happens every time the prasadam moves through the temple? Will you make that public?
Yes.
Will the people
So
of
that-
Andhra Pradesh get to know?
Yes, so that we are demanding a sitting judge inquiry. Let the
Okay.
Supreme Court sitting judge
Sumant,
can do an inquiry on this.
Sumant,
Let CBI is done on
one
this.
second. One at a time. Sumant Raman, yeah. Sumant.
Zaka, this is a
Sumant.
bit of an unusual case where normally in corruption cases, the accusation is you bought something at twice or thrice the market cost. Here is a case where they are saying that they must have indulged in corruption because they bought it at the lower price. So this is a very, very strange kind of accusation. Now, if there has been corruption, it needs to be probed. The point really is, merely because something was procured at below the rate that, say, Nandini or somebody else quoted, that does not.
No. The contention being that pure
You cannot
quality.
make
The
quality.
contention being that pure quality ghee cannot be brought down below a certain price.
Absolutely. So you need to see the earlier reports. You need to see the reports and what did the same
Okay.
vendor pass the quality test earlier.
Lanka
Or
Dinakar, and then after that,
vendor
Lanka Dinakar, then Mr. Krishna Prasad. Yeah, Lanka Dinakar, yeah.
Nobody can make up and cover the thing which happened in Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam regarding to the adverse impacted the quality of the laddu due to the way in which the laddu preparation operation was going on during the YS Jagan Reddy governments. It is very clear that the price of ghee, the quality of the laddu, and today's medical this lab test. If you see the chronological order of all these 3 things, fact is very clear. We can't say it is offered for donation, ifs and buts. These kind of makeups and cover-up and masks are not good, because it is negatively impacting the sentiments of the crores and thousands and lakhs of the
No,
devotees.
on that point I agree that because that's such an exalted, revered status for Lord Venkateswara, there needs to be an independent probe to get to the bottom of this charge. This is a very, very grave charge, leveled by no less than the Chief Minister. So he's also putting his credibility on the line. Krishna Prasad, final word, 30 seconds. I have to wrap up and move on to the next part of our program. Will the Chief Minister, will the TDP submit to an independent probe by a sitting judge or a retired judge?
Definitely now will take its own course
This
of
is a very,
action.
very serious matter. This is a very serious matter. We are very much worried why in the last 5 years, a lot of things are hidden under the carpet. No action was taken in spite of thousands and lakhs of complaints from the devotees. And finally, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu and Mr. Pawan Kalyan had to again complain. Then also they did not do anything. And after coming to power, naturally, they have taken the samples and asked for the test. So,
Okay. We'll see how this plays out. Thank you very much, Mr. Prasad, Mr. Dinakar, Mr. Gandhi, and of course, Sumant Raman for joining us. Like I said, because it involves the sentiment of tens of millions of devotees who revere Lord Venkateswara, we really need to get to the bottom of this, and we really hope that there is an independent probe that gets to the bottom of this muck and actually really finds out whether there is merit in this charge that is levelled by the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister. And if there is, then heads need to roll. Then accountability needs to be fixed, whether it's those members of the TTD board who were there previously, whether it was the company involved, or why not? The buck should go all the way up to the then Chief Minister. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, there are multiple meetings between Western countries and Ukraine that have taken place over arming Kiev. Kiev wants long-range missiles that can go all the way 500, 600 miles and hit mainland Russian cities. That is what the ask is. That is what the demand is as far as Kiev is concerned. But the question remains, will allowing Ukraine to fire Western-made weapons deep into the Russian mainland have a dramatic escalatory effect to the course of the war? That deep dive after this very quick break. We'll also look at the latest on the pager attack and then subsequently the walkie-talkie attack that Israel has undertaken in Lebanon. What may that mean for the stability of the wider Middle East region? That and more right on the other side.
Is very important. You release your manifesto on last day of campaigning. Still, nobody knows if you will continue your support as far as NC is concerned when it comes to the promise of returning to Article 370. There's been no talk about that. There's been no condemnation. This when Rahul Gandhi himself said that they do not approve of the kind of terror that is emanating from Pakistan. And so what is your position when it comes to trade and dialogue with Pakistan, something that's been endorsed in the NC manifesto?
Our position is one, that the BJP gives us Pegasus for a day so that we can tell who gives a direction from here, and it gets followed in Pakistan by the top leadership, by the ministers. Number two, we all remember the Pakistan frame that the BJP has when Mr. Modi went to Pakistan, hugged Nawaz Sharif, the then Prime Minister, had Kashmiri chai with him, had biryani with him, broke the protocols, sat in his chopper. The very
Ashpreet, you have still not answered the question. You are harping back to what happened in the past. Two wrongs will not make a right.
Nobody is saying that. I'm answering a question. It has nothing to do with us. It's not in our manifesto. We haven't said it. However, the BJP...
But you are in alliance with NC. Rohan Gupta, please go ahead.
The BJP had terrorists in their party.
Okay, what about giving tickets to terrorists? Rohan Gupta.
A very simple question to Congress spokesperson, and he is not answering the question because he doesn't know the answer. See, the question is very, very simple. When you are in triple alliance with somebody and they declare the manifesto, either you have to say you are with them or you are not with them. You cannot be everywhere. They are very, very clear. NC's manifesto has been very clear. They want separate flag. They will return Article 370. They want trade with Pakistan. They want talks with Pakistan. The question is very simple, whether Congress party endorses these views or not. If not, then why they are in triple alliance? Number two, now Pakistan has also endorsed this view. So does that mean that our enemy Pakistan, don't speak in between. I never spoke in between, right? So does that mean that if Pakistan stands, if Pakistan wants return of 370, do you feel that is good for the country? I think it's a big question to a national party. It's not only about Jammu and Kashmir. It's a repercussion. Since Congress is the national party, the repercussion is all across the country. You cannot just play around in between. Not here, not there. You should
Nasir Lone, I'd like to bring you in. Okay, let me also bring in the National Conference spokesperson, Nasir Lone. Nasir, I'm sure such a pre-poll alliance wouldn't have happened without support from the Congress party. NC is very clear that there is support coming in. What has given the Pak Defence Minister the kind of confidence to say so that they are on the same page as Pakistan today if the Congress was not, if actively and verbally but silently supporting your manifesto?
My first and foremost, good evening to everyone first of all. My first and foremost question to all of you is what is the problem with Article 370? Article 370 was given by Indian Constitution. It was way within the ambit of the Indian Constitution. It was the link that joined the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir with the Union of India. Why? What is the problem?
I'll tell you what the problem is. You tried to pass a resolution in the year 2000 to restore the status of Jammu and Kashmir prior to what it was before 1953. That resolution failed. It completely bombed, and once it's already bombed, why would you bring a false promise to the people of Jammu and Kashmir?
It is something. It is
that happened during Farooq Abdullah's time as well, and you don't seem to have learnt your lesson.
Okay, it is not a false promise. It's absolutely that we believe in. It is what we.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Britain's Foreign Secretary David Lammy made a joint trip to Kyiv this week. This was followed by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer making a visit to see Joe Biden in Washington. One of the big talking points in both of the meetings has been whether Ukraine will be provided with Anglo-French Storm Shadow and American-made ATACMS missiles. These two missiles have a range of close to 200 miles and they have the ability to be fired into mainland Russia. But this move is fraught with risks. Allowing Ukraine to fire Western-made weapons deep into Russia could have a dramatic political impact on the course of the war. Right now, it's been over 2.5 years and the war has remained mired in a grim battle of attrition. The advantage clearly seems to be with Moscow. Russian forces are now bearing down on the strategic town of Pokrovsk, which is the last remaining Ukrainian fortress, and if Pokrovsk falls, then it gives a free access to Russian troops to run through the rest of Donbass. Blinken and Lammy have given their justification for the missile escalation. They have alleged that Iran has supplied Russia with a first batch of short-range, high-speed FAT-360 ballistic missiles. So far, this is a massive step up from the Shahid drones that Tehran has already equipped Moscow with. Russia was likely to use these new FAT missiles within weeks. The FAT-360, these are missiles that have a range of about 75 miles. They could be used to strike Ukrainian cities close to the front lines, whether it's Kharkiv or Zaporizhia, Slovyansk, and even Kramatorsk in the Donbass. And theoretically, these missiles can even be used to target Kyiv. What this allows Russia to do is use its own stock of longer-range cruise and ballistic missiles to attack targets elsewhere in Ukraine. The missile war in Ukraine may appear to be never-ending because Russia's goal is to try and exhaust Ukraine's air defenses. Kyiv is already running short of the S-300 systems. Its power stations have been left defenseless as a result of that. We saw that earlier this year. Ukrainian estimates is that about 2/3 of the energy generation in Ukraine has been destroyed, and it's probably not going to be repaired in time for the winter. In fact, Ukrainians are staring at a very harsh winter this year. A similar strategy will be in the Kremlin's mind when it comes to higher value air defense systems, particularly the US-made Patriots. Joe Biden announced the donation of 4 Patriot systems at the NATO summit back in July. But here's the catch. There is a limited number of interceptor missiles that can be manufactured. This year, Lockheed Martin, which makes the most capable PAC-3 MSE interceptor missiles, expects to make about 500 of them. Ukraine is also concerned that the number of offensive missiles that Russia can fire could far exceed the world's ability to manufacture these interceptors. One estimate that is circulating in Kyiv is that Russia can make upwards of 1,200 missiles a year. That is more than twice of what the leading American manufacturer can make of interceptors in a year. Other figures are lower, whether it's an estimate from the Russian think tank which says that about 400-odd Kh-101 cruise missiles, plus a handful of high-speed ballistics as well. No wonder Vladimir Putin hit right back and issued a rather ominous warning when this news story came out. He said if America and Britain indeed did provide Ukraine with longer-range missiles, then according to him and according to Russia, it would mean that NATO is at war with Russia. This is a scenario which NATO has tried to avoid in these past 2.5 years. More than anything else, it would validate Vladimir Putin's reason for going to war against Ukraine in the first place, that NATO was threatening Russia's security by knocking on its periphery. Also, there is the risk of dangerous escalation. The key point is that as long as the Kremlin believes that it can win this war, or at least retain the initiative in this war, it is going to be an attritional one. And as long as this is an attritional one, then there is no incentive for Putin to consider negotiations. Even after the surprise and relatively successful incursion by Ukraine into Kursk, it is Kyiv that is actually struggling. Experts are hoping that Ukraine can hold on to Pokrovsk, which is the gateway to the Donbass, at least till the end of this year. Russia holds a force advantage which is estimated to be 4:1. For every 1 Ukrainian soldier, there are 4 Russians. And soldier numbers are the one area where the West cannot help Ukraine. Both Europe and America have made it absolutely clear they want no boots on the ground. What infuriates Ukraine is that it cannot hit back at military targets inside Russia with powerful missiles because the West, led by the White House of course, has not allowed the sale of longer-range ballistic missiles. However, the signals that we're getting in the last few days may be to the contrary, that this whole absolute prohibition on longer-range missiles might be lifted. William Burns, who's the CIA chief, said last week that he was sure that Biden will consider other ways in which he can help Ukraine, as long as this war can be contained in favor of Ukraine. The complication is that it is hard to imagine the US, the UK, or any other country that is helping Ukraine right now manufacturing the Storm Shadow, simply giving Ukraine a free hand to bomb Russia deep inside its mainland. It would not be hard work to figure out if either of these weapons have been used, even if it is a miscalculation by Kyiv, perhaps even resulting in the killing of a lot of civilians. That could have huge consequences. Nor are there large stocks of these longer-range missiles, which also is a reason why there is skepticism in the United States that these could actually turn the tide of this war. An effective use of long-range missiles might come only as part of a wider military plan. Ukraine has a plan. In fact, at the end of August, Andriy Yermak, who is the chief of staff to Volodymyr Zelensky, visited Washington, where it was reported that he would present a list of targets that Ukraine believed it could effectively bomb. The complication is that such discussions appear to bring the US and UK closer to the heart of any attack on mainland Russia. Ukrainian insiders have also talked about using the threat of long-range missiles against Russia to try and force an end to this war through a demonstration strike, a strike that would make it clear to the Kremlin it is possible to hit heartlands around Moscow. It is not obvious, though, if Moscow would react so benignly, but one complication is that Russia has nuclear weapons, and any long-range missile attack on Russian cities will see a quick and perhaps irreversible escalation. Zelensky has argued at a meeting of Western defense ministers in Germany last week that being able to strike into its enemy's territory would help ensure Russia is motivated to seek peace and not war. But the calibration of using longer-range missiles has to be very careful. Time may be short for Ukraine, given that there's a US election in less than 2 months. Missile diplomacy may not have been so significant since any time since the end of the Cold War. The recent escalation of military objectives by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu marks a significant shift in the ongoing conflict with Hezbollah and Hamas. Israel carried out a massive operation against Hezbollah on Tuesday by hiding explosive material within a new batch of Taiwanese-made pagers that were imported into Lebanon. This has been confirmed by multiple American as well as other officials who've been briefed on the operation. The pagers, which Hezbollah had ordered from the Gold Apollo firm in Taiwan, had been tampered with before they reached Lebanon. Most of these were the company's AP924 model. There were other Apollo Gold models that were included in the shipment as well. The explosive material, some of which was less than 50 grams, was implanted right next to the battery unit in each of these pagers. A switch was also embedded that could be triggered remotely to detonate these explosives. At about 3:30 in the afternoon in Lebanon on Tuesday, the pagers received a message which first appeared though it was coming from Hezbollah's leadership. Instead, the message activated these explosives. Lebanon's health minister told state media at least 9 people were killed and more than 2,000 injured. The toll is expected to go up. The devices were programmed to beep for several seconds before they exploded. This was the most sophisticated and coordinated series of explosions that Israel has carried out in Lebanon since the war with Hamas began last October. On the 17th of September, Netanyahu announced that one of Israel's war goals is to facilitate the return of residents to the northern communities. Now, these are the communities which have been living along Israel's northern border with Lebanon. Over the years, they have been evacuated because of persistent cross-border attacks from Hezbollah, which is an Iran-backed militant group. This decision was made during a late-night security cabinet meeting, and it reflects the urgent need to address the humanitarian crisis facing tens of thousands of displaced Israelis. The conflict intensified following Hamas's assault on southern Israel in October last year, which led to a broader military engagement involving Hezbollah in the weeks and days that followed. Since then, Israel has faced almost daily confrontations with Hezbollah along its northern border. These hostilities have resulted in significant casualties on both sides, and it has forced many residents out of their homes because of the constant rain of rocket fire. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's updated war goals aim not just to reclaim the territory there, but also to restore normalcy for those who've been displaced. The Israeli government estimates around 60,000 residents have been displaced from the northern towns, which have suffered extensive damage during the ongoing rocket attacks. The Prime Minister's office also emphasized that enabling these citizens to return is now a priority within their military strategy against Hamas. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has been vocal about the need for military action as the only viable solution to secure the northern border. He said that the window for an agreement with Hamas is closing, indicating that any diplomatic efforts with Hezbollah are becoming increasingly futile. Gallant's remarks come amid discussions with US officials about potential military operations that are aimed at stabilizing the northern border. He's also conveyed as much to America's envoy to the Middle East and one of the chief negotiators, Amos Hochstein. The US and its partners are worried that any direct military action against Hezbollah would lead to a wider Middle East war. Yoav Gallant's recent outspoken comments also raise questions about his own future within Netanyahu's cabinet. There is speculation running rife that Netanyahu is intent on replacing Gallant because of some of the comments that he's made about military actions in the recent days. This potential shift in the defense minister, virtually the person who's leading the military charge against Hamas and now increasingly Hezbollah, that could seriously impact Israel's defense strategy and also its internal politics. Remember, public opinion remains unfavorable to Netanyahu, with rising military casualties and, more importantly, the inability of Netanyahu's government to force Hamas to release the remaining hostages. The almost weekly protests against Netanyahu's government have only intensified in the last few months as the conflict drags on and the possibility of a ceasefire looks bleaker. Netanyahu is eager to get rid of Gallant to ensure the stability of his governing coalition. And if that requires appointing a defense minister who is a total novice and moving towards the threshold of all-out war and foregoing the hostages, that is a political sacrifice or a political gamble that Netanyahu is willing to play. The announcement has drawn varied responses from regional players as well as international observers. Hezbollah has indicated that it might reconsider its position if a ceasefire in Gaza were to be established. That would, of course, complicate Israel's military calculus. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on a visit to Egypt this week. He has highlighted the ongoing international efforts to mediate a ceasefire, but the negotiations have been stuck for the last few months now. There is no clear progress in the negotiations involving Israel, Hamas, and various mediators like Egypt and Qatar. Returning to the question of repopulating the northern areas, returning the residents to northern Israel, that still poses significant risks, both in terms of immediate security and long-term stability. The decision to facilitate the return of displaced individuals, while it's politically motivated, must also contend with the reality of the ongoing hostilities on the ground. The most pressing concern is the continued cross-border attacks by Hezbollah. Despite the Israeli military's best efforts to try and push Hezbollah back and its capabilities, the group has in fact significantly enhanced its military arsenal. The last time Hezbollah and Israel went to war was way back in 2006. This time, it's a different entity that Israel is having to deal with. The terror group now boasts of over 120,000 standoff weapons. This capability raises fears that returning the residents to the northern areas, they could be exposed to daily rocket attacks or other forms of violence. Hezbollah, in fact, has shown a willingness to target both military and civilian sites in northern Israel. Reintegrating the residents into the northern communities could also inadvertently provoke further escalation, like what we are seeing in the West Bank right now. If Hezbollah perceives the return of civilians as a sign of Israeli resolve or a shift in its military strategy, it may respond with increased aggression. So this tit-for-tat dynamic could very fast spiral into a broader conflict, and that would risk not just the civilian lives, but also draw in regional powers like Iran and even perhaps the Gulf countries. The Israeli government faces significant domestic pressure as well to restore normalcy in the northern areas. However, if the situation deteriorates following the return of these residents, then public sentiment could shift dramatically against the government. The decision to repopulate northern Israel amidst the ongoing threats from both Hamas and Hezbollah may also strain Israel's international ties. The United States and other allies of Israel are concerned about a potential escalation that could draw them into a wider conflict, something that America can ill afford right now, with just 2 months to go for the presidential election. It would not just be bad optics for the current incumbent, President Biden, but also a severe geopolitical headache for whoever is the next US president post-January, whether it is Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. Which is perhaps why Amos Hochstein, America's envoy to the Middle East, warned Yoav Gallant during their meeting this week that any major Israeli offensive against Hezbollah would not lead to the return of evacuated northern residents. Instead, it would significantly raise the risk of a prolonged regional war. Netanyahu's declaration marks a critical juncture in Israel's military campaign against both Hamas and Hezbollah. By expanding his war goals to include humanitarian resettlement for the displaced residents of northern areas, the Israeli government aims to balance its military objectives along with domestic political pressures. But the effectiveness of the strategy remains contingent upon both military success against Hezbollah and the broader dynamics which are shaped by regional alliances and the ongoing diplomatic efforts to try and broker a ceasefire with Hamas. As these tensions continue to simmer along the Israel-Lebanon border, the coming few weeks will be crucial in determining whether these new objectives can be achieved at the same time without further escalating violence or drawing the region into a wider conflict.
Of every citizen of Jammu and Kashmir. It is something that was promised to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. It was something that was given by the Parliament of India to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So we see no wrong in asking for our own right. 2, the abrogation of Article 370 was done in absence of any elected government, any elected representative, any elected member from the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. So, and coming back to what the BJP spokesperson was saying about Congress, they should actually ask themselves, when they made an alliance with the PDP in 2014, what was PDP's manifesto? Were they against Article 370? No. They talked about self-rule. They endorsed the 370. They spoke about talking with Pakistan. They spoke about trade with Pakistan. Why did the BJP form the government with them? Why was why was
I'm sure Rohan Gupta, you'd like to respond to that. That's a very valid question being posed by Nasir Lone.
Absolutely. Akanksha, I don't shy away from the questions and I will answer the question. But after that, I need answer from Congress and NC board. See, there is a difference between pre-poll alliance and a post-poll alliance. That was the election where there was no clear-cut majority to any party. And after the elections, if you form the government, obviously there will be common minimum program where you don't agree with all the points. But when you go into pre-poll alliance, it is a very clear-cut thing that both the parties align in their manifesto. And that is a question Congress party is not able to answer. Akanksha, it's not about one state. Again, I am telling you, Jammu Kashmir is a very crucial state to us. Maybe NC can have their own compulsions. But the question is to Congress party, what is their stand? They are not very clear on 370. They are dilly-dallying both the seas. You cannot go do like that. Because if Pakistan is supporting, endorsing your views, there is something seriously wrong with your view. Same way, if Pannu, the terrorist, he supports Congress party leaders' views, then there is something serious with their views. So that question needs to be asked, and there should be.
And that's a question I'll be taking from Ashpreet, but let me quickly go across to Lieutenant General Dua. Sir, thank you so much for so patiently awaiting your turn. Since I was referring to what we've seen happen to that resolution in the year 2000, do you think that such a new promise is only based on a failed legacy, since we've seen what happened to that resolution, and that the priorities of the electorate of Jammu and Kashmir have already changed? They know what the security apparatus was like prior to the abrogation of Article 370. Do you not think that this is also misleading the people of Jammu and Kashmir?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity after all the politics is done. Allow me to start by saying, that unlike the Pakistan army, Indian army is totally apolitical. So I will steer clear of any political views. about the security situation.
Rohan, if I could begin with you, first of all, I'm sure the Congress would say that no such promise of, returning to Article 370 has been made in the Congress manifesto. Then why be concerned about what the Pakistan Defence Minister is saying?
See, you cannot just say that it is not there in your manifesto. You are fighting this election in pre-poll alliance. You have seen National Conference manifesto. They are talking about talks with Pakistan, trade with Pakistan, 360, 370. NC's manifesto is very clear. When you are fighting election in pre-poll alliance, that clearly shows what are your views. And these are not my words. These are words of Pakistan Defence Minister, where he clearly endorses views of Congress and NC. So I think the question is that why our opposition, why our enemies are supporting your views. This is the first time in history of Indian politics the opposition party is supported by our enemy, and still they have no answer for that. So I think there are questions which.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post, and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Is India arming Ukraine in its war against Russia? A new report says Ukrainian forces are using ammunition from India. New Delhi has dismissed these claims as misleading. But how is Kiev getting its hands on Indian artillery, and how will this affect India's relationship with Russia? We'll bring you the full story. We're also tracking the Sri Lankan election. The voting starts tomorrow. Today we took the pulse of the voters. How have the austerity measures impacted daily life in Sri Lanka? We'll bring you a special report. In Bangladesh, calls to extradite Sheikh Hasina are getting louder. This comes after Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe told First Post Hasina should remain in India. And as the new iPhones hit the shelves, not everyone is feeling the urge to upgrade. Across brands, in fact, the excitement around new launches has faded. We'll tell you why customers are delaying smartphone upgrades. All this and more coming up on the show. The headlines first. Gold prices hit an all-time high. The surge comes after the US Federal Reserve cut interest rates. In India, there's cheer on the Lal Street as well. The Sensex and Nifty hit record highs. The stock market benchmarks jumped more than 1% each. The rupee also strengthens further against the US dollar. Staying with India, protesting doctors in West Bengal call off their strike. They will rejoin the emergency services from tomorrow. Thousands of junior doctors have been on a strike for more than a month now, after the rape and murder of a doctor at the RG Kar Hospital in August. France set to finally get a new government. The full cabinet lineup is likely to be announced by Sunday. This would end the deadlock, which has gone on for more than 2 months. It was created by the inconclusive legislative elections that were held in July. China to gradually resume seafood imports from Japan. It had imposed a blanket ban last year. Beijing was worried about the release of water from the disabled Fukushima nuclear plant. China and Japan are major trade partners. In 2022, Beijing imported more than $500 million worth of seafood from Tokyo. And Taiwan retains the death penalty but limits its use to exceptional cases. In 2010, Taipei lifted its moratorium on capital punishment. Since then, it has carried out 35